Welcome back to the channel, and in this video we're doing a recap and review of The Bachelor season 25 episode 10 Fantasy Suites. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications. If you like the video, smash that like button, and also feel free to drop a comment down in the comment section below because I like to engage with our viewers and subscribers. So without further ado, let's jump into this video. So it starts out where we see Chris Harrison shows up and tells the women that they're going to have that off-camera time to have the tough conversations and to use that time wisely. So the girls are definitely excited. We're down to 3 girls, which is Michelle, Bree, and Rachel. And they're definitely looking forward to having that one-on-one time where they can spend the actual day. And if it leads into a night in the fantasy suites, then, of course, the choice is theirs. So Chris drops off the first date card. And of course, the girls is on pins and needles to see who is going first. So Bree is the one that opens up the card, only to reveal that the first person is going to be Michelle. And of course, Michelle is excited. She's definitely looking forward to having that one-on-one time. So she goes off to get prepared for her date. So while she's getting ready, back over at Matt's place, it turns out that he's feeling a little conflicted about, the steps in his relationships with Michelle, Bree, and Rachel. There's a lot of fear of what long-term commitment could look like based on what he's seen in his family in the past, he says. For his relationships to move forward with these women, there's a conversation that needs to be had. And the conversation that he's referring to is with his father, who shows up on the scene. And it seems like, for the most part, they're glad to see each other. I remember from previous episodes, he was saying that his dad wasn't really in his life. But, he was able to be on the show. And so things started out a little awkward because, Matt is definitely trying to ease into the conversation about his fear of commitment. He looks ahead to being a husband and a father. And Matt says, he missed out on having a father who was present in his life. He told his father, when I needed you, you weren't there to have those tough conversations. You started other families, which affected him. And he needed to know where his head is at so, Matt won't make the same mistake going forward. However, Manny, which is his dad, says that he doesn't want Matt to make those mistakes either. He also gets a little defensive. If you had come to me in the past, I would have had this conversation with you. And his dad adds that he didn't have a father figure in his life either because his dad was killed when he was 5 years old. The conversation gets a little deeper. And his father says, do you know what I went through with your mom when you guys were like 2 or 3? And, you can tell he was kind of upset. I came home one day and your mom was gone, bruh. That's what he said. And Matt, understandably agitated, he, shot back and said, for good reason, who wants to be with someone who's not going to be faithful to them? And, it doesn't go over well. It seems like to Matt that he's making excuses, but he just want to hear where he's coming from. He want his dad to understand that. At this point, it doesn't look like it's going to end well. He says, I'm not here to discuss me and your mother's relationship and stuff like that. That's what his dad was saying. I'm here to celebrate your success and help him get past of everything that they've worked through. And, we have Matt saying, I remember growing up, you come around every now and then, drop off some shoes, buy us some pizza, and he was visibly upset about that. He even broke down in tears. And he was like, I didn't need shoes. I needed a dad. And, Matt finds the strength to keep going through the conversation with his father. He said they've been through a lot. And, he says, I get that I don't know what it's like to grow up in Africa, without a dad like you, but I did know what it was to grow up without a dad here. And I'm trying to address those things now. And of course, his dad got silent, and then he said, I agree with you, son. And he wipes away some tears. He says that, I'm sorry. Whatever I can do to make this better, I'll work on it. So it was definitely an intense conversation. And of course, with his dad saying that, of course, Matt is getting teary-eyed, and he, whispers to him, I want you to be a part of any relationship I'm in going forward and in my kid's life going forward because you're my dad. And, they decided to forgive each other. So it was a very interesting conversation between the two of them. Do I think this is a conversation that should have definitely been had? Absolutely. Do I think it should have been had on national TV? My opinion, I don't think so. I think this is something that they really could have dug deep instead of putting on display in front of the entire world. But I understand that maybe Matt needed this, situation. So let me know what you think. The conversation definitely is something that they needed to have. I just don't think that they should have had it on national TV. That's just my thought. So, of course, again, let me know what you think. But they hugged it out. And, he was saying that I'm proud of you. You're doing great. We see Matt walking him out. And, it ended with some tough talk, but it also ended on a good note with the two of them. They're both in a good space, it seems, with each other. I'm curious to find out after this interaction, what is his current relationship with his dad now? Did they progress from this point? So, all right, let's move on to our first date, number one, which is Michelle. And it's a rainy day. And of course, Matt and Michelle are looking forward to spending that quality time together. So what they ended up doing, of course, after they meet each other, greet each other, share a kiss and everything. And I actually, thought that these particular scenes that I took was really romantic, where they had the little kisses in the rain under the umbrella. I thought that was cute. Check out my Instagram page. I tend to like to drop these little shots on my IG account. So Romance Review TV on IG. Check that out. So, of course, Michelle is excited, and they walk into a Dutch spa. And Matt and Michelle looking around, they see a milk bath, they see oatmeal, like an oatmeal foot bath or something like that. I actually thought that milk bath was kind of interesting. I wonder, they said, oatmeal and milk is good for the skin. But they're definitely open to, the process. Let me know what you guys think. Would you guys want to put your feet in some oatmeal? Because that's definitely what they did. But they actually, got prepared. And the first thing that they did after, getting undressed was to slosh around in the tub of oatmeal. And I can imagine how squishy that feel, but I do know that oatmeal is definitely good for like rashes and things. So obviously just for a regular foot spa, they definitely took advantage of that. And she was definitely kind of cute and playful with the oatmeal, trying to get him to taste. And he was like, no way. If I had stuck my foot in there, I wouldn't have either. So then he poured like this warm oil on her back and kind of rubbed her down, slapped her lower butt part with the little wheat whip. And then they start playing with butter, where they rub each other down with the butter and everything. Yeah, I mean, okay. But obviously they tried to make it where it was slicky fun. But, they definitely had found it to be romantic. So, of course, they also took advantage of the milk bath. And then after taking a shower, they reclined on fur rugs where they were able to discuss last week's hometown date. So Matt proceeds to tell her that her family made him feel probably the most comfortable of anybody I was introduced to last week. Michelle said that her family has always operated like a team, and adds that her parents pretty much exemplifies what it takes to make a marriage work. She also talks and say people talk about falling in love and being in love, but I think it's super important to talk about like staying in love and how do you plan to stay in love, because it does take work. And Michelle, that's definitely a good question. I mean, it's one thing to fall in it, and I like to call it growing in love. Falling in love, it's okay, but growing in love and staying in love, that's the biggest thing. So after a great day with Michelle, Matt said that their connection just took off. So obviously he seems to be feeling her at this moment. So now they're having dinner, and at dinner, Matt opens up to her about how his parents' failed marriage shaped his own views on love. He said, "When I thought about my mom and dad relationship, I think about distrust, unfaithfulness, and lack of communication. And I want to be the man that my dad wasn't." And Michelle is all in. She says, "I do look at you as my person. That's where I'm at." And of course, we see how she's definitely expressing to him, where she stands, where her feelings are, and, pretty much of the fact that she has fell in love with him. The interesting thing is that he didn't say it back. Usually he'll say it's good to hear that, or he'll just go in for an instant kiss with no, I'm feeling the same way, or whatever the situation is. I only see him do that with one person. So he pulled up the card which asks if she wants to he forego their individual rooms in order to spend a night as a couple in the fantasy suite. And again, they get to the fantasy suite and, they have a little champagne. And this is where, again, she dropped the L bomb. But instead of saying falling, she says, "I love you, Matt." And of course, we hear all of this music and everything. And he goes in for the kiss. He never responded back, which I do find pretty interesting. But she's definitely on cloud nine about everything. And obviously, they both agreed to, do the night in this fantasy suite. In the meantime, somebody is having a hard time with this. And of course, Bree is looking at her like, okay, this is the Bachelor. But, Rachel was pretty much saying that this week was one of the hardest weeks because of him being with other women and spending the night with them. But, it seems like Matt and Michelle happiness is at an all time. Again, Rachel is spazzing out in regards to the fact of, what could be happening with the two of them. But this is part of the show. You can forego, or maybe you don't do anything in the fantasy suite, but this is part of it. So the next day or the next morning, we see Matt and Michelle. And the two of them are on cloud nine. They're playing with each other, and as she leaves, he's yelling over the balcony, "Michelle!" And of course, she turns around to wave at him, and he watches her walk away. She's coming back to where the ladies are, and she tell the girls, "I do see you guys are struggling with this." And Rachel starts wiping away some tears, and they sit in silence because Rachel's not next. Bree is up next, and Bree is getting ready to go off to her date. So they spend the first part of their date in the woods of Pennsylvania. Bree admits that she's an outdoorsy type person, and of course, Matt says he is too. However, he does not have any camping or tent pitching experience. But they're definitely having fun. They kind of got these long sticks that they're using as canes to kind of help them hike through the woods to get to the spot where they need to set up everything. So, in the meantime, they're bonding over conversation, which is cool. And I do understand that they're in a bubble. So the things that they get to do on their dates, which we would usually see in other parts of the city or something like that, they have to stay on the grounds of Nemacolin. So they set up a tent where at first I was like, I know that this is not going to be fantasy suites, but it wasn't. But they just have a good time having some conversation. Bree was saying that she feels lucky to, meet Matt's mother next week if she makes it to the next round. She also want to know how confident Matt is that he's ready to be engaged at the end of this journey. And Matt reveals to Bree that he was able to have a serious conversation with his dad about his family's past, and that helped him get closer to being ready. So now it's time for their dinner. And then the thing is that they have some conversations similar to his, but this is Bree as she's getting emotional thinking about her strained relationship with her own father. And she said, I think him knowing who I have become and the woman that I have become without him will give him a lot of peace of mind. And she was tearing up about that. If it's any reassurance to you, I still feel 100% ready for an engagement after this. What I'm feeling is that I really so in love with you. And of course, she dropped the L-bomb word as well. And I didn't hear him say the same back. And again, I look for those things when I'm watching the show. Again, I've only heard him say that, I think maybe once or twice with Rachel. But, he definitely did not say that. I think he said something more of, I'm glad you shared that with me. Okay, yeah. But how do you feel, Matt? And that's what I was hoping to hear. And who knows, maybe he said something and we didn't get to see it. But as far as I know, the conversation did not happen. And so, of course, after their conversation, then there is the fantasy suite card that is about to pop up. And of course, the thing is if they wanted to choose to forgo their rooms, they can stay in the fantasy suite as a couple. And of course, it seems that the two of them was definitely interested in doing so. And so, of course, he had a big smile on his face. And again, this girl, Bree, is the one that I knew she probably was going to go to the final 3 or 4. But I actually see them, I saw them as the best couple. But, we'll definitely see how that turned out toward the end. But they had a nice little room and suite and everything. And they closed that door, and that was that. And of course, we still don't know what happened behind closed doors, whether they did anything or whether they just sat up and talk all night. We don't know, but they did shut the lights off and they made sure that we saw that. So now after another morning after, Bree and Matt decided to cuddle together and, have some more conversation. Again, I wish this was the couple. But, they definitely seem to have a connection. Anywho. So they decided to make breakfast. And then they cuddled some more on the couch after making some breakfast. And then after, their little small talk and conversation, she had to, of course, head back out to go back to where the other women were staying. And, he said, we connect on the deepest of levels. I can see a life with Bree after this. And I'm like, yes, but I didn't want to get too excited because we don't know. It's still 2 other women. And so, of course, he watches her walk away. And, they were definitely excited. But Rachel is still not feeling this. She is, back at the hotel saying that I don't want to see her when she gets back. She's telling that to Michelle. And is this jealousy? Is it the fact that she didn't like the fact that he was with other women before he got to her, or just the mere fact that other women are involved, And Bree walks into the room with all smiles, saying it was really nice. She enjoyed the uninterrupted time with Matt. And, she was nice about it. She asked Rachel, was she excited about her date? and Rachel decides to head off and sit alone. And she was upset. She was getting in her head about things feeling different with Matt now that he spent serious time alone with two other women. So, I didn't understand this part. I mean, I understand the fact that, she may be, feeling some kind of way about everything, but this is part of the show. This is something that they've been doing. And the fact of the matter, she don't know whether they slept together or whether they just stayed up all night talking. So let's talk about her date. We saw her sitting, by herself crying and things like that. But, Matt, on the other hand, is feeling great about his overnight date. He's hoping Rachel is fired up about their day together. But from, of course, the moment she walks in, it's clear that she's in her head. There's no, she didn't run and jump or anything like that. And then they had to go to this pottery class where they were making these little pottery bowls or something. And he was into it. She definitely was not. She wasn't feeling it. Again, she was in her head. This pottery lesson given by this woman named Lauren. She was definitely trying to recite the different things about ceramics and everything. And it was like the woman wasn't even there because Rachel just could not get past the fact that, the other two girls had a night with him. And she said the thought of him getting intimate with another woman is excruciating to her. So they stepped away and Rachel finally decided to have some conversation. She said, I picture you as my future husband, and knowing that you're spending really intimate time with other people, I really didn't think I would get through this week. She do know that Matt is doing what he needs to do for this journey, but Rachel is, letting him know that she's just not feeling it. And of course, Matt says, there's no easy way to go about the next 2 weeks, but it's necessary. Matt, of course, promises her that he's doing everything as respectfully as I can go about it. And he reminds her about how scared he was when he thought that she died during the skydiving date. I'm going to continue to show you how I feel about you, he says, where I am with you. I'm falling in love with you. And finally, Rachel, of course, it definitely reassured her. And that's the thing. And that's what I didn't hear with the other two girls. He actually told Rachel, of course, where his thoughts was. So, they definitely came back together and decided to finish up the pottery. And, of course, she says, I'm completely in love with you too. So now it's time for their dinner, and of course they're all smiles, but they are now having their conversation. And Rachel asked Matt if he has any worries as he approaches the end of this journey. And of course, he fills her in on the most important conversation that he had with his father earlier that week. And, Rachel says, I know you would never walk away from a family. And, she said that she's completely ready to get engaged should Matt choose her at the end. I'm ready to take on life with you and whatever comes our way. And, of course, as time went on, we all know what happened with these two. But we'll have to finish watching how they're going to end this season. Matt, of course, now gives the opportunity for the fantasy suite. And before they do that, of course, they share a kiss. And, like I said, he didn't share where his feelings were with Bree and Michelle, but he definitely said where he was feeling in regards to Rachel. So, like I said, unless he said it to all three girls and we just didn't hear it because it was edited out, we did definitely hear it on clips with Rachel. So they decided to take advantage of the fantasy suite card. We saw that they started out with these big fireworks display outside their window. A lot of people in social media were saying that she got the better edit. Some people said production showed favoritism on this couple because we didn't see all that with the other couples. But let me know what you guys think. So now we're coming down to the final rose ceremony. And we have, of course, Bree, Rachel, and of course Michelle ready to come in. And of course, as two people got a rose, one person went home, and that person was Bree. And it was an emotional scene. I hated to see her go. I actually thought that she had a better connection with Matt, but obviously it was not meant to be. So that leaves our final two for the finale next week, which is Michelle and Rachel. So we'll definitely see what goes on next week. Let's do our post notification shout out. If you want to be shouted out, drop a comment down below. I will see you and shout you out. So this week goes to Laverne B. Thank you so much for engaging the channel. I really, truly appreciate it. And until the next video, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you soon.